Season is now upon us. Emily Maitlis can go first.
Calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Then the Prime Minister can apologise too, and as for the rest of the Cabinet...
When he was Prime Minister, he repeatedly refused the requests of people saying there has to be a national inquiry to clear this up once and for all.
You know, the Conservatives could have done another national inquiry.
Well, the Chancellor had her chance this morning, and what about legacy media?
Was he in a white gang?
Are we going to pretend that Muslim groups are not out there purposely targeting our youth and pimping them?
There we go. Also tonight, talking of apologies...
You smash it? Still not so.
A new study reckons sexist and homophobic jokes are rife on elite golf courses. So should men be able to enjoy harmless banter in privacy, or does it maybe cross a line? And... The Middle East boils over after multiple deaths in Israel from Iranian missile strikes. President Donald Trump refuses to deny the US could soon get involved. And a new royal book reportedly exposes Meghan Markle's ambitions to become a billionaire. And when it was clear she wouldn't be one, she threw her toys out the pram. Editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, joins me for that and news. Harry and Meghan have lost another 6 staff members. And I'm joined on the panel tonight by GBNews contributor Will Kingston, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. And stop the press, this guy has found the answer to world peace.
Everyone on planet Earth, stop killing. And if we do, that will benefit everyone.
Yes, just stop the killing and everything will be OK. Easier said than done, I suspect. 3 hours of breaking news and big stories coming up, including the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. First, though, let's get your news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Ben, thank you. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom at 9:02. For a third consecutive day, Iran and Israel are continuing to exchange ballistic missiles. These are the latest pictures of missiles reportedly hitting the port city of Haifa in northern Israel. It's understood many others were intercepted. Israel's Prime Minister has warned Iran will pay a heavy price for the deaths of Israeli citizens. Overnight, at least 10 people were killed, including 3 children, and more than 140 were injured after missiles hit homes in northern and central parts of the country. In Iran, at least 138 people have been killed, many of them children, after an apartment block was flattened in Tehran. Well, G7 leaders are planning to issue a joint statement on the conflict in the Middle East, calling for a de-escalation. They were planning to focus on trade, energy security and Russia's war in Ukraine. But, of course, the crossfire between Iran and Israel is now centre stage. The Prime Minister is calling for diplomacy and dialogue, while the US President is urging the two sides to make a deal. The UK government is also warning against any travel to Israel or the occupied Palestinian territories. Well, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, will be speaking to Ben immediately after this news bulletin, so please stay tuned for more details on this story. The NSPCC has welcomed the Prime Minister's decision to launch a national statutory inquiry into grooming gangs, but warned action must not be delayed. The Chief Executive says survivors have waited too long for justice. Sir Keir Starmer is understood to have U-turned on the decision after reading a major report into the scandal, which is set to expose institutional failings and warn that white British girls were ignored for fear of racism. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, will give a common statement tomorrow, with Casey's full report expected to be published at the same time. And a manhunt for the gunman who shot 2 politicians in the US state of Minnesota has entered its second day. Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were both killed in their home in the city of Minneapolis. Authorities say John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, were also shot in their homes a few miles away, but they are being treated for their injuries. The state governor branded the attack a politically motivated assassination. The suspect, who has been identified as 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter, was posing as a police officer before the shooting and managed to escape on foot. Those are the latest headlines. I'll have more for you at 10 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Welcome to Ben Leo tonight on this Sunday evening. For a third consecutive day, Iran and Israel are continuing to exchange ballistic missiles. These are the latest pictures of missiles reportedly hitting the port city of Haifa in northern Israel. It's understood many others were intercepted. Before we crack on with the show proper, let's talk to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, for an update with some breaking news. Mark, good evening. What's the latest, please?
Yeah, before we go through a sequence of images of what happened tonight, I want to bring you really tragic news that 5 of those killed in last night's missile strikes on an apartment block south of Tel Aviv were apparently Ukrainian nationals who'd been obviously living in Israel because of the conflict out in Ukraine. So caught up in that explosion at that apartment complex at Bat Yam, which is just south of Tel Aviv, and their bodies recovered from the scene there. A devastating attack that was. But looking at this evening, this was just before 7 o'clock this evening. You can see the missiles coming in over the skies of Israel. This is central and northern Israel. Those images are Tel Aviv. And among the sort of interceptions that have been taking place with the Israeli missiles going up there are what's very clearly exoatmospheric detonations, so detonations that are taking place outside the atmosphere of these ballistic missiles, but still some made it down. I think we've got another image there that we can show you, gives a clearer example of the pulses that come out from these explosions that are taking place in space. It's incredible to imagine that, but that's what they're doing. But look at that. You can see other missiles and parts of missiles continuing to rain down on Israel. Now, we've got images also that show one of those missiles in the northern port city of Haifa. You see that right down there and impacting the ground. A very significant explosion.
Wow.
And now we can show you the aftermath of that explosion on the ground with firefighters in Haifa battling to deal with multiple cars ablaze, buildings also badly damaged by the impact of the explosion on the ground there. This is clearly very worrying for people in Israel because their layered missile defense system is so effective. It has been very effective over the years in dealing with these missiles coming over from terrorist groups like Hamas in Gaza, or indeed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. But we're dealing with ballistic missiles from Iran here. Look at those images. And this has also been replicated elsewhere in Israel. In southern Israel, you can see firefighters also dealing with the aftermath of a strike, buildings damaged, Ben. And although the all clear has been given for the moment, nobody believes that that will be the last wave of missile strikes coming over this evening.
Wow, extraordinary pictures, and I think maybe is it at least 10 dead in Israel and more than 400, Mark, in Iran. What about Iran? What's going on there?
Yes, listen, there's no doubt that Iran is getting hit hard. That's why, the death toll there is quite significant. Now, Israel are saying they do not target civilians, but what they have gone after are regime figureheads. We can show you some of the images from Tehran, actually, that show multiple explosions in the Iranian capital. So they are impacting areas within a city, but Israel say that their strikes are precision-based. They will only take out a very short radius around the apartment they're aiming for. And they've taken out, I think at last count, it was 14 nuclear scientists. They've taken out it seems most of the main commanders of the Revolutionary Guard Corps and associated regiments of that corps. So there is an element of disarray, and this is a missile launcher that's been taken out as well. There is an element of disarray amongst the command structure in Iran. It's a bit like the decapitation policy that we saw enacted in southern Lebanon when Israel went after Hezbollah and its leadership, taking out pretty much all of the leadership there, including the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, and sending that into absolute disarray to the point where they had to then come around the table and agree a cessation of the violence. I'm sure Israel will be hoping for the same with Iran, but not before they've achieved their aim, Ben, which is to degrade Iran's nuclear capability so that they do not build a nuclear bomb.
Mark, thank you for those pictures, for the update. Really appreciate it. And I know our viewers are equally as grateful too. Thank you, Mark White. OK, let's crack on with the top of the show, because it looks like apology season is upon us, doesn't it? We're finally getting a full rape gang inquiry, but we don't need to wait for that to conclude before those who did their best to dilute and play down the scandal say sorry for doing so. Tomorrow, we'll likely see the publication of the Casey review into rape gangs, and it's understood the reports will directly link the scandal to the Pakistani community and say the rape of Britain was institutionally covered up over fears of being called racist. Well, let's start with the Prime Minister himself, shall we, who hurriedly announced a national inquiry last night when he heard what was inside Baroness Casey's report. In fact, the report is suggested to be so bad that Downing Street fears Southport-style riots. So I guess it's no wonder Keir Starmer made the call last night. But it was only in January, wasn't it, that the Prime Minister said this about calls for a national inquiry.
And when politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Don't waste time waiting to say sorry, Prime Minister. The time is now. You can do it now. Nigel Farage said as much today, declaring Keir Starmer should apologise to the victims for the cynical way that he tried to avoid a proper grooming gang inquiry and for his insults to those who have tried to ensure the perpetrators are held to account. Next up in the list, it's Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, who could have taken her chance to apologise on behalf of the government this morning, but defended their delay in launching an inquiry.
When Keir Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions, he took forward the first prosecutions in
when he was Prime Minister,
Rochdale.
He repeatedly refused the requests of people saying there has to be a national inquiry to clear this up once and for all.
You know, the Conservatives could have done another national inquiry, but they didn't. We've been focused on implementing the recommendations of the Alexis J review and other reviews, because those recommendations have just been sitting on the table. But the Prime Minister wanted to assure himself he was doing everything that was necessary, which is why he asked Baroness Casey to do this rapid review. She said at the outset that she didn't think there was a need for a national inquiry, but during the course of her rapid review, she's concluded that a national inquiry alongside the local inquiries to give statutory powers is the right way forward.
Well, maybe tomorrow you'll say sorry, Chancellor, perhaps. Well, then we have Global's Emily Maitlis, who recently gave this cringeworthy performance when interviewing former Reform MP Rupert Lowe.
Do you not think, Emily, there's an issue with Pakistani Muslims raping working-class white underage girls? Do you not think there's an issue there?
I think there is an appalling issue with grooming when it hits any community and any age. We only ever hear you talk about Pakistani perpetrators.
Are you telling me there's no issue?
I'm telling you that you are focusing on Pakistani grooming gangs because probably you're racist and you don't believe that there are white perpetrators of the same crime. Can you deny that?
It's still unbelievable now, even watching that back. I mean, what a joke. Baroness Casey, of course, as a reminder, will reportedly tomorrow explicitly link the rape gangs to Pakistani communities. Maybe, Emily, you could write a letter to Rupert Lowe asking for forgiveness. Then, of course, we have Labour's Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, MP, who came rather undone on Question Time this week when he said this about small boat invaders.
Got to make sure you're doing these things properly. There are lots of sensitive information, sensitive cases across the country. Remembering that Keir Starmer was the Director of Public Prosecutions when he worked with Baroness Casey to bring the first prosecutions for grooming gangs in Rochdale many years ago. That process has now concluded. The report has been written by Baroness Casey, and on the basis of that, a national inquiry will now follow.
All right, well, no apology there. But whilst we're at it, I think Tommy Robinson deserves an apology from some quarters too.
Anyone who's been murdered by a Muslim gang, you probably don't, I do. Do you know any 15-year-old girls that you know that you've grown up with that have been raped or pimped? You don't. So I don't expect you to understand the issues.
These are all personal issues of yours.
Personal issues in towns and cities like mine that are happening, and they're not happening with the Sikh community, they're not happening with the Jewish community.
And indeed, they're not happening with most Muslims.
No, they're happening within the Islamic community.
That was 2013, by the way. But the truth is, the people who deserve the biggest apology in all of this, of course, are the victims. Don't wait for the inquiry to conclude. I think the Casey review tomorrow will already be enough to shame a lot of people. And may apology season kick off in full swing. Well, joining me now is my panel tonight, GB News contributor Will Kingston, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Good evening, panel. Chloe, I'll start with you. Happy birthday, first of all, for yesterday.
Thank you. Well, this was the best birthday present ever, finding out that we're going to have a national inquiry into the grooming gangs. I think Starmer and Emily Maitlis and everyone else you mentioned there should apologise, but I highly, highly doubt that they will. We know, I mean, politicians generally are not very good at apologising, but Starmer particularly. And, I mean, look what happened with the winter fuel U-turn. They pretended that they hadn't made any mistake whatsoever, and this was just because Rachel Reeves has managed to stabilise the economy enough that she's now able to change policy. Labour clearly are just going to say, oh, yeah, this is what we were thinking of doing all along. We were just waiting for this report to come out to make our decision, when actually very clearly, I mean, you showed the clip of Starmer saying this is jumping on a far-right bandwagon calling for a national inquiry. It's pretty embarrassing for him.
Will, are we going to get apologies from anybody?
No, we're not. But the thing is, they should. Maybe not necessarily because it's the morally right thing to do, although it is, but because it's just the politically intelligent thing to do. There is the lost art of the political apology. And really, this would be the quickest way for them to show maturity. It would be the quickest way for them to show confidence. It would be the quickest way for them to actually diffuse the sort of commentary that, say, you know, commentators like Ben, like you just put forward. If they come out tomorrow and say, we're very sorry, we underestimated the scale of this problem, that's why we did this report, and now we recognise it and we're going to go full bore on it, that's the quickest way to stop that sort of comments like that you just made. But they're not going to do it, and I think it just shows the lack of confidence in this government, but also just the lack of political skills. I think someone like a Tony Blair, and you know, Bill maybe would be better placed to answer this, but I think someone like Tony Blair would have apologised for this, and he would have been much more successful on the politics of it as a result of it.
I guess the argument, Bill, is they'll wait until the inquiry's done, but I argue just apologise now because this Casey review is coming out tomorrow. We've had leaks of the details.
Yeah, but let's deal with the facts. Keir Starmer, in 2012, so 13 years ago, was one of the first people in this country to address, when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, address the grooming gangs scandal. He said, and I'll quote from it, in a number of cases presented to us, particularly involving groups, there's clearly an issue of ethnicity, and that has to be understood and addressed. And he changed the prosecutorial guidelines within the CPS to be able to effectively tackle the grooming gang scandal. You read Andrew Norfolk, who's the pioneering Times journalist who first exposed the grooming gangs. He credits Keir Starmer with gripping
OK, so I agree with you. So Keir Starmer, back then, when he was head of the CPS, he knew how serious this was. Yeah. Yeah. And so why in January then, knowing how serious this was and the depth it goes and the cover-up involved, knowing that, why did he turn down a national inquiry? And also call it a far-right bandwagon?
Because there's already been inquiries, and what he was focused on was implementing the recommendations from those inquiries so that people can have their victims' cases reopened and so that it becomes a criminal offence to withhold evidence of child sexual exploitation.
I would say, Bill, sham inquiries, that some didn't even mention particular cities where grooming gangs were absolutely rife.
Well, the J inquiry did cover grooming gangs gangs. It wasn't the sole focus, but it did cover it. But
there's a subsection of the subsection, Bill. That's
credit where it's due. The government commissioned Louise Casey. She's an absolute star in my experience, and I've worked with her. She has changed her mind and concluded there needs to be a national inquiry.
Do you think Emily Maitlis should apologise?
Yeah, I thought
to Rupert Lowe?
I thought that was appalling.
Do you think Tommy Robinson deserves an apology?
I'm being absolutely frank. I didn't properly hear what Tommy Robinson was saying or what Jeremy Paxman was saying.
He was speaking to Paxman. Tommy Robinson was trying to say there were Pakistani rape gangs. This was back in 2011 or 2013, that clip. And Jeremy Paxman was saying, pretty much, you're making this up in your head because, you know, you...
Well, I think that's wrong, and I've had run-ins with Jeremy Paxman. But let me say this as well. We're going to have a national inquiry. National inquiries normally take 5 to 10 years, and it's really, really important that time lag doesn't stop the government from implementing the recommendations to tackle this abuse.
All right, Will, last word to you, quickly.
Bill, it may be because Keir Starmer has the emotional depth of a teaspoon as is, but you've got to admit that he has missed the mood of the moment. You can put all the quotes that you want out there from 2012, but even the way that he presented the report yesterday at 6 p.m. was administrative, it was bureaucratic, and it had no care or consideration for the victims of the scandal.
All right. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I agree with you that one of Keir's downsides is his communication skills. But the bottom line is, when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, he recognised the issue and gripped it. OK. He's doing that now.
I wish he did something about it.
I think he takes
We'll continue this in the papers. Communication skills, or maybe lack of communication skills. Right, we swiftly move on. Our biggest cash prize giveaway to date is up for grabs, £54,321. It's equivalent, apparently, to having an extra £1,000 in your bank account each week for a year. What would you do with all that money? I know what I'd do. Here's all the details you need to win.
The Great British Giveaway is now even greater, with your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. A totally tax-free £54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Imagine what you could do with that. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, good luck to you. Bill Rammell just asked me what I'd do with £1,000 a week in my bank account. I said I'd probably be down the casino playing cards, but hopefully I'm a bit more sensible than that. Maybe 10 years ago I would have done that. Anyway, up next, a new study from Newcastle University shows how sexist and homophobic jokes are still apparently very common on elite golf courses. Is laddish banter OK, especially in privacy, behind closed doors, locker room banter? That's next.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, a new study from Newcastle University shows how allegedly sexist and homophobic jokes are still very common within the elite golf community, such as banter like this.
You smash it? You go around there any night and found Redknapp hanging out the back of it.
So that was the infamous Sky Sports saga from a few years ago involving Richard Keys, of course. Richard Keys just called it banter, others disagree. But from nicknames such as Nicola Sturgeons to Philip Schofield, these so-called jokes may seem harmless. However, researchers now say it excludes women, the LGBT community and minorities from golf games particularly. So are conversations like that, are jokes like that just banter, or do they really cross the line? Well, I'm joined now by political commentator Connie Shaw and the broadcaster Imran Aitan. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. Connie, what's your take on all this? Is it banter, jokes such as that?
Well, personally, actually, I found some of the comments in the article quite funny. And I also think it's quite a patronising and massive generalisation to say that all people from certain groups are going to find these jokes off-putting. I know many women, I know many gay people and people of racial minorities who are able to appreciate satire and sarcasm. And frankly, I think that if you're a woman who's in business, perhaps, I mean, there's nothing stopping a woman or anyone who feels uncomfortable with certain comments calling them out. And that perhaps might show some sort of assertiveness when you're surrounded, because this report was specifically focused on people in the business world where they go golfing and negotiate at the same time. And there's this idea, there's sort of this masculinity on display. But actually, I think if someone did feel that a comment was inappropriate, they could call that out and assert their dominance. I've been working in hospitality since I was 15, and I very quickly realised that I would be hearing comments that frankly were disgusting, far worse than anything else I've seen in that article. But I also realised that people should be able to say what they want in private conversations, and also that I have agency to call those comments out or question those comments. And a number of times I did, and I was sort of known for standing up for myself working behind the bar. And in a few scenarios, I had men come back very embarrassed and apologise to me. So to say that all women, for example, because this, again, report is specifically about gender, would feel off-put by being in this environment, I think is very patronising and tells women that they don't have the agency to call things like this out.
Yeah, good point. Iman, I would argue, being a man, that men especially need some time with each other to just let off steam, make silly jokes, say something that may be crude sometimes, which aren't for the ears and eyes of people within, not within that group. Is that okay?
Yes, because we're all humans. Could you imagine if we are just like literally having to continue life between now and the time that we die and have to be constrained by these rules. So I hear you. I'm not a man, but Ben, I hear what you're saying, because us ladies have the same thing. We all do. Let's be honest with ourselves. And Connie, I really appreciated your points in terms of agency and being able to call out these things that you see. I think that is an excellent point. And I think that we need to get, as human beings, a bit more confident in doing so. I think that the reason why we don't, and the reason why it should be highlighted in regards to it being a barrier, is because it comes with consequences, as you know, Connie. So some men would have been embarrassed as a result of you highlighting their kind of crude behaviour and sexism and whatnot. But then some, if they're your manager, might hold it against you. And the next minute, you know, you don't get a promotion because you dare tell your manager that he was sexist that Friday night when he was just having a chat with the lads. So I appreciate exactly what you're saying. And I just wanted to just highlight one more point. I think the main point that I think what we need to consider is that this banter breeds a culture of disrespect and discrimination and prejudice and bias towards, that could be towards women, it could be towards Muslims, it could be towards black people. It breeds a culture. So if you say it in the privacy of your own home, I feel you, because you need a moment to just let rip. But it does reveal yourself. With all due respect, it does reveal how your brain works. It reveals your prejudice. It reveals your bias. It reveals how you feel about women and Muslims and black people and more. So that's okay.
I disagree.
If it manifests and into your workplace, now you're affecting the quality of life of the Muslim. Now you're affecting the quality of life of the black person. Now the list goes on. And
that's a good point.
You know what I mean.
I disagree, but I think it's a good point. Connie, so if you necessarily make a joke, say, I don't know, I've got to be careful what I say here, about anybody, about any subgroup, any subgroup in private, does that mean you have some sort of inherent bias against them, which you'll carry on into public life in your workplace or whatever?
I really don't think so. And I think what this report glosses over is that these are jokes. And often people make jokes about things that you would never actually say in all seriousness, and that's what makes it funny.
And that you don't believe either.
And that doesn't mean that everyone has to enjoy that sense of humour, but but someone not enjoying that sense of humour or finding it disrespectful is not a justification for these men to be self-censoring. And I think that's what this report is doing, trying to shame men for having this sort of sense of humour. And I really don't think that is a justification. And what you were saying, Imran, about my point earlier about calling things out. Sorry, Iman. What you were saying earlier about my point, I still accepted that I would have to sort of go along with things, and not because I thought that it was personal about me or that I didn't deserve to sort of have some sort of justice. I had conversations with my boss who said to me, but Connie, these are the customers and this is their place of leisure. They come here to let us team too. So it, you know, there were some things that would be on the line to call out. But at the same time, I don't think that is appropriate to make men in these situations self-censor.
Okay. All right, Iman, so you've got 20 seconds. Sorry to squeeze you to finish off. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I'll just say, what was my point? I appreciate everything you said, Connie. Thank you very much. You've made that clear. I'll just say one thing, which is, please remember that your banter is your thought, a preconceived opinion, and then it leads to a feeling, it leads to a behaviour, and that, in and of itself, in a workplace, leads to a culture. And I just want to say that these things lead to discriminatory behaviours, and so it's okay to do it within your own self, within your privacy of your own home with your friends. That's fine, but just be conscious of the fact that habitual behaviour might lead and manifest and infest your workplace. And next minute, you know, you're being discriminatory within your workplace, and you didn't even realise it, purely because you decided to repeat banter over and over and over again, which affects your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviour.
Got it. Thank you. Activist and broadcaster Iman Asen, thank you very much. And political commentator Chloe Shaw. Thank you, ladies. Right, moving on. Women, after the break, will no longer face prosecution for having a self-administered abortion. It's been reported under a change in the law set to be voted on by MPs next week. So should MPs pass the bill? Are you pro-abortion? Are you against abortion? And there was a particular case during the pandemic where one woman was very, very near full term, and she got some medication online, apparently didn't know how far gone she was, and aborted her baby very late in the day. She avoided prosecution, but we'll discuss that next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I
hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If it's heat you're after, then the Mediterranean is the place to be over this forthcoming week. We are going to be seeing temperatures climb over the next few days. Worth noting that that heat could spark off a few showers and thunderstorms in places, but generally there will be plentiful amounts of sunshine for many of these countries if you are heading out. The peak of the heat likely to be on Wednesday at this point, with inland areas in particular seeing 35 to 40 degrees Celsius.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. As we transition into a new week, there will often be quite settled conditions around for many of us, and even out there at the moment it is relatively calm. Plenty of clear spells and dry conditions for the vast majority, a few mist and fog patches. The same can't be said for Western Scotland, though, where rain will be arriving during the second half of the night. This could turn heavy over the hills for a time. Temperatures, though, will be holding up in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Monday morning. We do, though, have that rain in play for the far north and west of Scotland first thing on Monday. The heaviest pulses will be in the early hours, and it will tend to ease as we head throughout the day, but still fairly damp and grey to come here, and quite a brisk breeze around the coasts and hills as well. Some of that rain could just flirt with the far west of Northern Ireland, but parts of County Down probably seeing a decent amount of sunny spells, and the bulk of England and Wales will also see some sunshine pretty much from the word go on Monday morning, and that will continue throughout the day. There'll be some fair weather cloud bubbling up in places that might make the sunshine hazy at times, particularly for southern areas of England, but it will stay dry, fine and pleasant. Temperatures will also be up tomorrow compared to the values we've seen around today, so more widely across central eastern areas seeing the mid-20s of degrees Celsius. Even 20 degrees, 22 for parts of Northern Ireland, central and eastern Scotland, more around mid-teens for the far northwest. And that's because we see another weather front pushing its way in as we move overnight into the start of Tuesday. This could bring some stronger winds first thing in the morning, potentially close to gale strength around the far north of Scotland. And there'll also be this band slowly slipping its way southeastwards. That rain will tend to weaken throughout the day, and there'll be some sunny spells developing behind that, but the most prolonged sunshine right throughout Tuesday will again be down towards the southeast. But the sunshine looks like it will develop more widely across all areas of the UK as we head towards the middle of the week, and those temperatures are also going to be climbing. Bye-bye.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello, welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. I'd just like to apologise quickly to Connie Shaw, who was on previously during the debate with Emma Nathan, because when I said goodbye to her, I called her Chloe Shaw. It's because I've got Chloe Dobbs on my mind, obviously. So, Connie, if you're still watching, apologies. Right, we move on. Women will no longer face prosecution for having a self-administered abortion, it's been reported. That's under a change in the law set to be passed, or voted on at least, by MPs next week. Women would, under this law, not be breaking the law, keeping up, if they terminate a pregnancy after 24 weeks or without approval from 2 doctors. The new law is set to be passed in a free vote on an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill when it returns to the Commons next week. Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel, former Labour Minister Bill Rammell, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the GB News contributor Will Kingston. Chloe, or Connie? Chloe, I'll start with you because, of course, you're the woman on the panel, and it does feel kind of iffy for blokes to be speaking about abortion.
I was just saying to Will a moment ago, I think blokes are absolutely quite right to have an opinion on this. Yeah.
Well, I've got my thoughts. What are your thoughts on this potential change in the law?
I think that this is a bad idea to decriminalise it after 24 weeks, i.e. meaning that women face absolutely no consequences whatsoever if they make a decision to terminate a pregnancy after 24 weeks. My understanding is this change of the law would mean that if a woman decides to terminate a pregnancy at a late stage, just before the baby is born, maybe with these pills in the post that you can get just because she didn't want, like, the gender of the child, no consequences whatsoever. That, to me, seems deeply wrong. I think that as a woman, although you have rights and liberties as well, you are carrying a baby who, after a certain point, becomes sentient, has a working brain, and also has rights and liberties that need to be considered against yours. And you carry some responsibility there. There needs to be some culpability if you do something ridiculous, like, as I said, aborting a baby who could have lived just because you wanted a girl and it was a boy.
Yeah, got it. Well, we are in this country far more generous than, say, France, where the limit, I think, is 14 weeks. So 24 weeks, for me, is just about acceptable. But under this new legislation, you could go full term, terminate your own baby, and you wouldn't get prosecuted for it.
Yeah, which doesn't feel right, does it? There was a time on the left side of politics where they said it should be safe, legal and rare, in the words of Bill Clinton. And there was, I'm not going to say a consensus, but it felt like society was getting towards that accommodation. Now, what I would point out, and this is more so in America, but we're obviously seeing this creeping into the UK now with this particular bill being put forward, is that abortion is almost this badge of honour for certain women on the left because they associate it with feminism. They associate it with my body, my choice, and then they take that to the extreme.
Yeah.
And you really see that in America, but there is now this Americanisation of British politics. I think the balance is about right in this country, and I think it's unfortunate that it now seems to be being pushed beyond that point.
Yeah, Bill, it's Labour MP Stella Creasy who wants to make was tabling another amendment by making abortion a human right. Is abortion a human right?
No, look, this is a really difficult issue. I personally don't think this vote will go through next week. I think enough MPs will oppose it. As a Member of Parliament, I voted in favour of the current framework of abortion up to 24 weeks. Actually, if you look at the polling evidence, about 76% of British people support that position. There's a debate to be had around decriminalisation. There are some 60 countries where an abortion is not a criminal act, and one of them is Northern Ireland, which I hadn't realised until looking at this afternoon. But for me, I'm not convinced about decriminalisation. You do have to go through a process that involves a doctor, and I think the law needs to police that. And I particularly am concerned that this is a debate on an amendment to a bill that will be debated for 3 hours. When the abortion law was brought in by David Steele back in the 1960s, it had weeks and weeks and weeks of scrutiny. 3 hours for a debate on something like this, I think, is wrong.
I'm not suggesting this isn't an important issue, but it is a relatively settled issue in the community, and I do wonder, why are these politicians bringing this up now when this country is facing severe economic and cultural challenges? To me, this feels like culture wars virtue signalling to try and move away from the genuine issues that are affecting not just women but men in the society as well.
Yeah, indeed. Just 6 women have appeared in court in England charged with ending or attempting to end their own pregnancy outside the 24 weeks in the past 3 years, including the one from the coronavirus pandemic. As you say, I think we're probably OK at 24 weeks. And you made a great point about the Americanisation of British politics. It just seems like we're getting dragged down that path where we're getting stuck in sort of messy abortion debates and women's rights and feminism and so on. Anyway, the vote's next week, Bill?
Next week.
Right, you don't think it will go through?
I can't say definitively. My gut instinct is enough MPs will vote against it, but only 3 hours to debate it is utterly wrong.
Do you think Keir Starmer would be happy seeing this come up in Parliament?
My honest view, no.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You're right, 6 people is not that many. You know, is this that big of an issue? I understand the argument people will make is that the state should not really be involved in an issue of conscience like abortion, and that it should be up to women to decide. But I do think women actually have a lot of rights and freedoms on this, up to 24 weeks. I think it's pretty lenient.
As I said,
I don't think this is a big encroachment of the nanny state.
We're pretty generous compared to other countries. Right, let's move on. Coming up, is DEI... I didn't write this. Is DEI, D-E-A-D, is DEI dead? All male shortlists are back and the woke agenda seems to be in retreat. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's news channel.
News channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, in a major shift, all male potential employee shortlists are returning to the City of London as top firms scale back diversity policies. They're taking a flamethrower to DEI. Executives say excluding men from recruitment is no longer acceptable and even insulting. What a U-turn. Companies such as Meta, Amazon and Ford are rolling back diversity programmes amid global backlash, particularly from US political pressure. And recruiters now call all female shortlists too risky in today's climate. Well, joining me now is social entrepreneur and broadcaster Krish Kanda. Krish, thank you for your company this evening. This is good news, right? Away with the DEI, the woke, tick box quotas and so on. Back to normality.
Ben, I take a different view, but it's lovely to see you. Well, I want to live in a society where people are treated well, wherever they're from, whatever their gender, whatever their race. Which part of the DEI agenda do you have a problem with yourself? Is it the diversity part? Is it the equality part? Why would we want to discriminate against people because of their gender, their race, or their disabilities? All the DEI was trying to do was to make sure that people were treated fairly. Surely that's a good thing.
Well, do you want equality of opportunity or equality of outcome? Because if you look at let's use the NBA. It's a great example, Krish. I like basketball. If you look at the NBA, it's something like 80% black. So are we saying that we should be having more white players in the NBA, even though they're not as fast, maybe can't jump as high, aren't as skilled or technical at basketball as black people? Was that what you're saying?
No, I want to live in a society where people are treated correctly. So having an all-male...
What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
An all-male shortlist in the City of London, that doesn't seem appropriate. We're saying that women have got things to bring to the workplace that are different to men, and so making sure they're represented, surely that's a useful thing.
But what if the men on that all-male shortlist are just the best candidates for the job?
Well, often diverse boards and diverse companies are able to better represent their workers, are better able to connect to their customers. So why wouldn't you want to bring the best minds around a table rather than just having a monochrome all-male staff list?
Well, because maybe that's just how the cookie crumbles. Maybe on that occasion, the people that applied for the job happen to be mostly male, or indeed the best candidates were male. I'll go back to the NBA argument, or even let's talk about athletics. The Team GB sprinting team, in years gone by at least, were all black, because I argue black people are just more athletic than white people. I mean, you're not going to go into Team GB in Loughborough or wherever they're based and say, hang on a minute, guys, these 4 black people were the best at the sprinting relay, but in order for diversity and to better represent the country, which is a majority white, we need some white people in here, even though they're slower. Surely you're not saying that.
I don't think the world of sports is the same as the world of business. I noticed, for example, GB News has a very diverse presenter lineup. You've got black people, you've got white people, you've got men, and you've got women. You've tried to be inclusive.
No, we haven't. I don't think, Chris, I don't think anyone here has deliberately said we're going to hire this person because they're black, this person because she's a woman, this person here because he's gay, and this person here because he's trans. They're probably just best for the job. In fact, I know that's the case.
Ben, on your morning show, you always have a man and a woman present. You never have 2 men. Why is that? Because you believe in diversity.
I think people just prefer it. I don't think it's a diversity thing. I think especially as a bloke, if I'm watching breakfast TV, I don't want to see... As a man, Chris, I don't want to sit at home in my boxers eating my muesli in the morning, watching breakfast TV with 2 blokes. So that's why there's a woman there.
That's an interesting picture of you in your boxers, Ben. Thank you.
Well, I normally charge for that, so you got this one for free.
I think we all believe society's better when we've got variety. And I think we should definitely make sure we've got the best people for the job. But those people that are best for any job might just not be from one gender, one school background, one age bracket. I think we want everybody around the table.
All right. Kumbaya. Krish, I'll leave you to it. I'm going to discuss this with my panel now. Thank you for your company this evening. Appreciate it. Krish, Candia. Panel, Will, what are you giggling at?
I'm still trying to get past the image of you in your undies eating your Wheat Bix watching the morning news, Ben. I think it's something which is going to stop me from actually having anything insightful to say for the rest of the segment.
It's true, though. It's true. I mean, it's not a diversity thing that we have a male and a female presenter. It's because of talent and because it just looks better.
Yeah, of course. Anyone who's sensible agrees with you there. But I think there is a bigger point here, and that is even if executives at high levels of these organisations are saying, well, we're not going in for this DEI thing anymore because it's no longer commercially viable and the public vibe shift has changed, you underestimate how many people in the HR layer, that middle management layer, the marketers, still have power in these organisations. And overwhelmingly, they are left-wing and overwhelmingly they still buy into this stuff. So even if you're hearing CEOs say this, there are still plenty of ways for HR managers who still have that first screening call for every recruitment conversation can still implement this by stealth. And I fear that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's riddled. Chloe?
Yeah, there's still a lot of wokery in the corporate world, a lot of pressure for people to have their pronouns and whatnot on their LinkedIn their emails. But I really do think you need to scrap these female shortlists. Like, as a woman, if I was given a job because I was ticking a box and filling a quota...
Yeah, what an insult.
I would feel insulted. I mean, I think even Angela Rayner actually said that she was against the being on an all-female shortlist because she says, I'm better than the blokes, I can beat the blokes. Not that I think she's a great politician, but a valid point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Labour still has, for example, for MP, for candidate list, they all-female shortlist.
And I've got some personal experience of it. The first general election I fought was 1992 and I lost. The party then brought in the policy that 50% of marginal seats had to be women-only shortlist. I was fighting a marginal seat and there was a real chance I was going to lose out, which I would have been concerned about. However, that policy change led to 101 women Labour MPs being elected in 1997, which broke the glass ceiling. Look, I'm in favour of positive action, not positive discrimination, positive action. Women, black people have been discriminated against. That's not only unfair, tackling it is good for business.
Okay.
All research shows diversity improves performance.
Yeah, present discrimination doesn't solve past discrimination.
OK, let us know what you think at home. gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget, you can stay with us all day, not just on television, but on radio and on your smart speaker. To listen to us on your smart speaker, just say, play GB News on TuneIn. Coming up, Sir Keir Starmer is to demand France steps up in the small boat crisis. That's next with the front pages. Back in a tick.
A positive positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed home battery storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. As we transition into a new week, there will often be quite settled conditions around for many of us, and even out there at the moment it is relatively calm. Plenty of clear spells and dry conditions for the vast majority. A few mist and fog patches. The same can't be said for Western Scotland, though, where rain will be arriving during the second half of the night. This could turn heavy over the hills for a time. Temperatures, though, will be holding up in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Monday morning. We do, though, have that rain in play for the far north and west of Scotland first thing on Monday. The heaviest pulses will be in the early hours, and it will tend to ease as we head throughout the day, but still fairly damp and grey to come here, and quite a brisk breeze around the coasts and hills as well. Some of that rain could just flirt with the far west of Northern Ireland, but parts of County Down probably seeing a decent amount of sunny spells, and the bulk of England and Wales will also see some sunshine pretty much from the word go on Monday morning, and that will continue throughout the day. There'll be some fair weather cloud bubbling up in places that might make the sunshine hazy at times, particularly for southern areas of England, but it will stay dry, fine and pleasant. Temperatures will also be up tomorrow compared to the values we've seen around today, so more widely across central eastern areas seeing the mid-20s of degrees Celsius. Even 20 degrees, 22 for parts of Northern Ireland, central and eastern Scotland, more around mid-teens for the far northwest. And that's because we see another weather front pushing its way in as we move overnight into the start of Tuesday. This could bring some stronger winds first thing in the morning, potentially close to gale strength around the far north of Scotland. And there'll also be this band slowly slipping its way south-eastwards. That rain will tend to weaken throughout the day, and there'll be some sunny spells developing behind that, but the most prolonged sunshine right throughout Tuesday will again be down towards the southeast. But the sunshine looks like it will develop more widely across all areas of the UK as we head towards the middle of the week, and those temperatures are also going to be climbing. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed home battery storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we're in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good evening to you. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Ben Leo, and breaking tonight, Sir Keir Starmer is set to demand, yes, demand, France steps up in the small boats crisis. The Sun is reporting this evening the Prime Minister is going to call for more cooperation from Emmanuel Macron at the G7 summit in Canada, where we go to live pictures now. The Prime Minister is meeting world leaders. This is the PM landing in Calgary as we speak, and we potentially will be going live there imminently. Stay tuned for that. And in the Middle East continues. Iran has launched fresh missile strikes on Israel, and the latest news that we just heard from Home and Security Editor Mark White is that 5 Ukrainians have been killed in Israel. They were refugees, we understand. Iran's news agency is reporting that 224 people have been killed since Israel attacks began on Iran, and Mark White will be joining us live on the other side of the news with all the latest updates. In other royal news, the police are investigating a sex attack allegation at George, Charlotte and Louis's £30,000 a year private school, and Harry and Meghan, of course they've parted company with another 6 employees. I wonder why. Elsewhere, Madeleine McCann's brother, Sean, there he is, he's a highly accomplished swimmer. He's being tipped to join Team GB. I'm joined tonight by GB News contributor Will Kingston, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. And I'm going to tease this guy again because I love him. The full clip is coming up imminently, but stop the press. This chap has found the answer to world peace.
Everyone on planet Earth, stop killing. And if we do, that will benefit everyone.
Amen, my friend. All of tomorrow's front pages coming next, but first, let's get your news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Hello, your latest GB News headlines at 10 o'clock. Iran and Israel are continuing to exchange ballistic missiles for a 3rd consecutive day. At least 224 people have been killed in Iran since Israel began its offensive on Friday. Tens of them are reported to be children after residential buildings were flattened by the strikes. In the last hour, it's been reported the chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guard and his deputy have been killed in the latest attacks on Tehran. Overnight, at least 10 people were killed, including 3 children, and more than 140 injured in Israel. It's reported 5 of those victims were Ukrainian nationals who were living in the country after fleeing war in their homeland. Israeli officials say their bodies will be flown back to Ukraine once airspace reopens. G7 leaders are planning to issue a joint statement on the conflict in the Middle East, calling for de-escalation. These live pictures are Sir Keir Starmer arriving in Canada for the talks. Well, the talks were supposed to be focusing on trade, energy, security and Russia's war in Ukraine. But of course, the crossfire between Iran and Israel is now centre stage. The Prime Minister is calling for diplomacy and dialogue, while the US President is urging the two sides to make a deal. The UK government is also warning UK citizens against any travel to Israel or the occupied Palestinian territories, saying the situation there is too dangerous. Our Home and Security Editor Mark White will be speaking to Ben immediately after this news bulletin, so stay tuned for more details on this story. The NSPCC has welcomed the Prime Minister's decision to launch a national statutory inquiry into grooming gangs, but warned action must not be delayed. The Chief Executive says survivors have waited too long for justice. Sir Keir Starmer is understood to have U-turned on the decision after reading a major report into the scandal, which is set to expose institutional failings, and warned that white British girls were ignored for fear of racism. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper will give a common statement tomorrow, with Casey's full report expected to be published at the same time. The manhunt for a gunman who shot 2 politicians in the US state of Minnesota has entered its second day. Democratic State Representative Melissa Holtman and her husband Mark were both killed in their home in the city of Minneapolis. Authorities say Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were also shot at their home a few miles away, but they are being treated for their injuries. The state governor branded the attack a politically motivated assassination. The suspect, who has been identified as 57-year-old Vance Luther Bolter, was posing as a police officer before the shooting and managed to escape on foot. Those are the latest GB News headlines. I'll have more for you at 11 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to the News Hour on Ben Leo tonight. Before we get stuck into the papers, let's get an update on the Middle East situation, because for a third consecutive day, Iran and Israel are continuing to exchange, well, Iran sending ballistic missiles Israel's way and Israel retaliating in kind. Let's take a quick look at these pictures now. These are the latest of missiles reportedly hitting the port city of Haifa in northern Israel. It's understood many others were intercepted. Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, is with us now. Mark, what's the latest, please?
Well, an ominous warning from the Iranian regime to Palestinians, telling them to stay away from nuclear facilities in Israel, an indication perhaps that that might be next on their target list. We brought you the news the last hour, the tragic news that 5 Ukrainians are among those who died in an apartment block in the southern suburbs of Tel Aviv. They were, we believe, in that area. They were there having fled Ukraine because of the war there, only to get caught up in this conflict. And you're looking at images there out over Tel Aviv this evening that showed some of the latest barrage that came in just before 7 o'clock this evening, and a number of those missiles impacted the ground. We've got another angle that we can show you that is looking much further up as the missiles are intercepted high in the atmosphere, above the atmosphere. But we know that a number of these missiles, and you can see it there, did get through and impact the ground. Another image shows an impact on the port city of Haifa, a direct hit right in Haifa itself with a large explosion and pall of smoke. This is the result on the ground, with firefighters dealing with significant blazes, multiple vehicles in one residential street ablaze, buildings damaged as well. Really shocking images. And, you know, whether it's a direct hit from the ballistic missile or the debris from that missile after it's been taken down, or even the interceptor missile that Israel has put up, they all cause damage on the way down if they come in contact with any homes or vehicles or people, God forbid. And we know that today already, Ben, some 10 people have been injured, and that follows last night's very intensive airstrikes in which 10 people died and 140 were injured. Southern Israel, just like central and northern Israel, also being bombarded by missiles today, and firefighters dealing with the damage to buildings there as well, Ben.
OK, and what's the situation in Iran, Mark? Because I understand they've had far more fatalities than Israel.
Well, they have indeed. Israel has been hitting them hard. We want to show you, first of all, if we can, some remarkable images. These are the bomb hits that have been taking place in the capital, Tehran, around Tehran itself. And Israel say they don't deliberately target civilians, but they have been going after members of the regime. They have been targeting the likes of the Ministry of Justice and the Foreign Ministry, which are in Tehran itself. So, you know, there's obviously people that are getting caught up in that, with 224 now confirmed dead and 1,200 injured. But we want to show you the most remarkable images, Ben. This evening, this is the outskirts of Tehran, with vehicles leaving Tehran en masse this evening. Just a traffic jam of vehicles on the main motorway coming out of Tehran. You can see it there. It's just incredible. Very little, if anything, going into the Iranian capital, but lots of vehicles heading out of the capital this evening, trying to get away from the continued Israeli bombardment.
Mark, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. We'll possibly catch up in the next hour or so. Thank you, Mark White, Home and Security Editor for GB News. Right, should we take a look at the first front page, which has just dropped hot off the press? It's the Metro. The headline reads, "You'll pay a heavy price." So it's Benjamin Netanyahu's warning to Tehran over deaths of civilians and children. We're going to go to... get some live pictures, actually, just as I read this, to Canada. Keir Starmer is about to get off a plane, I think, in Calgary, where he's just landed. Anyway, this Metro front page, Benjamin Netanyahu warning Iran over deaths and civilians, two civilians, rather, and children, including, of course, the aforementioned 5 Ukrainian refugees who have been killed in Israel. Brits have been urged not to travel to Israel, but Donald Trump says Putin can mediate. Right, we're going to Canada now. Live pictures. This is the Prime Minister live in Calgary. We're waiting for him to get off that plane any moment now, ahead of the G7 Leaders Summit. They'll be discussing a range of issues, not least the Middle East, but of course as well in the Sun tomorrow panel, Will Kingston, Chloe Dobbs, Bill Rammell. There is this story that Sir Keir Starmer at this G7 meeting in Canada will be lobbying Emmanuel Macron of France to step up in the small boats crisis. He's going to be calling for more cooperation near Calais, particularly, when he meets Macron momentarily.
And Ben, can I point out, Keir Starmer may be the only world leader who's more interesting when he's actually not on the screen than when he is on the screen. We can actually keep this particular visual on for longer, then I think you actually will get more higher ratings.
I'd like to see him navigate those steps.
I mean, that's the thing to watch for with world leaders. Is how well can they walk up and down the stairs up into
He's a guy who still plays football regularly at 63, so I think he's doing all right.
Is he 63, the Prime Minister? OK, I'll give him that. He looks all right for 63. What do you make of this story, though, in the Sun, Bill? He's going to lobby Emmanuel Macron for more cooperation. I mean, again, I've said this a couple of times, week after week. This just proves that France aren't doing all they can, despite us giving them nearly £500 million over 3 or 4 years.
Well, there's actually a bit about this that concerns me, and it's the constant attempt to feed the beast of the media and news management. There has been an agreement with France. My understanding is the deal will be done in Macron's state visit for the French to change the law in France, for France to intervene in shallow waters, and for it to be reinstated as an offence to travel through France and then go on to Britain, all of which is a very good deal. But I think the government needs to deliver that rather than just pumping it out in different weeks, to create news stories.
But, I mean, Bill, of course that news that they're going to be able to go into shallow waters is good news. But, I mean, Keir Starmer putting pressure on Macron, like, about time. Why is it that we've been giving them this...
We've been doing it for months.
Look, we've been giving them this money for, what, several years? And we're just not holding them to account. The percentage of crossings that they stop has been going down, despite us giving them more money. Why haven't we been saying to the French, if we're going to hand you a penny of British taxpayers' money, you better do the job? And it's not as simple as, it's just because they couldn't go in the shallow waters. I do not think that they put an effort in unless there is a camera there filming them.
The government has been putting pressure on the French for months and months to get this changed. There are legitimate police objections to the change in the law.
Why are we giving them money?
Hold on. There are legitimate police objections in France to the change that is being made, but the cabinet recently
They don't want to get their toes
the
wet.
French cabinet recently voted to support that change in the law. When it's enacted, it will make a significant difference.
OK, just as a quick reminder, if you've just tuned in to GB News, Ben Leo tonight, this is the Prime Minister, live pictures of Sir Keir Starmer in Calgary, in Canada, ahead of the G7 Leaders Summit. Of course, we've seen him rubbing shoulders with... I call him the globalist-in-chief, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, the former bank...
on the right, by the way.
Yes, Keir Starmer's the one on the right, if you're watching on television. Yes, they're going to be discussing, as mentioned, in The Sun tomorrow. We're discussing it now. Keir Starmer will apparently lobby Emmanuel Macron to do more on the small boats crisis. But again, Will, with the EU Surrender Summit some weeks ago, as part of that deal, do you remember? France were saying, OK, sign this deal and we'll do more to help you out on the small boats. It just proves again that they're not doing all they can, despite the raft of taxpayer money we're sending them.
Again, forgive me for doing the whole I'm Australian, I've seen how you actually solve this problem routine for the 1 millionth time. If you want to stop the boats, you can stop the boats.
Yeah.
It just requires political will. So the question then becomes, why does France not want to stop the boats? And that's because they want to get rid of these refugees and they're more than happy to see them cross the channel and become someone else's problem. Why does the UK not really want to stop the boats? Because ultimately Keir Starmer cares more about this nebulous, vague international human rights law than he does about the citizens of the United Kingdom. That's the reality of this problem, and that's why it won't be solved in the course of this government.
Well, the reality of the situation is France has more asylum seekers per head of population than does the UK, as does Germany.
That is sadly their problem. That is sadly their problem. That is not this country's problem.
It's a global problem that requires global cooperation. That's what the government has been pressing France to do. France is now changing the rules to be able to intervene.
I think that one thing that I definitely learned over the painstaking long course of the Brexit negotiations is if you're going to negotiate with EU leaders, you have got to bring your A game, stand your ground, be a strong negotiator, else they will walk all over you.
And we got an atrocious Brexit deal through that strategy.
I think UK citizens are so sick and tired of politicians like Bill saying, well, these are global problems, we all need to do our bit, as opposed to saying, we voted for you to put our interests first.
And also, Bill, I would say we have a vast channel of water between us and mainland Europe. That should be the biggest... That shouldn't be an issue that exacerbates the problem.
It's a natural advantage.
It should be a defence. It should be an absolute defence.
But it is, because the number of asylum seekers per head of population are significantly lower in the UK, even though they're too high, than they are in France, Germany...
Well, why aren't you lobbying China to take more asylum seekers, Bill? Why aren't you lobbying Eritrea? Why are you lobbying, kind of any other country? This isn't a global solution because Labor aren't looking for global solutions here.
Just to interrupt very quickly, this is Keir Starmer getting on a Canadian Air Force helicopter. He's got off the jet at Calgary Airport. He's now jumping into a... What kind of chopper is that? I mean, it's definitely not a Black Hawk. Is it a Chinook?
Big one.
Is this supposed to make him look tough?
Is it to make him look tough?
It's not convincing me.
Anyway, he's getting onto a Canadian Air Force helicopter. He's going to the G7 summit. Bill, do you want to answer that point from Will?
Which point about China?
Well, again,
China, we do need to cooperate with China, but they're not a material player in terms of the legal and police changes that we need in order to tackle this problem. The people that we need those agreements with, most particularly, are our European neighbours, and that's why we're focused on it. That's why we've done a deal with Germany over criminal prosecutions, and it's why we're have pushed, and have achieved a change in the rules of engagement in France.
To be clear, we only need their engagement at the moment because we voluntarily are part of European agreements like the ECHR. It is still up to the voluntary decision of the United Kingdom government whether or not they choose to stay in those agreements.
I think
if you want to get out of it, you can.
I think we need to cancel France. We need to stop buying French cheese, stop buying their sparkling wine. English sparkling wine is much better anyway. We need to stop going on holiday to France. I think we need to cancel them.
If you were to turn the boats back to France tomorrow and drop the boats back onto the shores of France, what would happen? What would happen?
Nothing. Keir Starmer's...
They're not going to go to war with the United Kingdom. And if they did, their track record is not particularly good.
Keir Starmer's international lawyer friends would moan and put their hands up.
The reality is that's not going to happen under Keir Starmer, but the changes that Bill is talking about, being able to go in the water and whatnot, those will hopefully make some difference. But what I say is, why were we handing them a load of money before we had figured out a way, and these changes and whatnot, to effectively stop them? The incentives are all wrong, and that's what I was saying when I was saying you need to bring your A game when you negotiate with EU leaders. You need to be very clear. If you're not going to make a difference, you are not getting a penny.
But, Chloe, I made the point before, the Tough Man Act, the A game, under Boris Johnson, got us the worst Brexit deal possible. You actually have to negotiate
So what,
smart.
Boris should have been weaker and just let them walk all over them even more?
No, he should have done detail, and he shouldn't have lied to people
I'll
about
admit
what
Boris
he was achieving.
isn't great on detail.
This is the guy who said there's going to be no border in the Irish Sea in respect of Northern Ireland, lying through his back teeth.
Can I move the discussion on very slightly? If you're just watching live now, if you just tuned in, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is at Calgary Airport in Canada. He's jumped into, I think it's a Chinook, I'm going with that, into a Chinook helicopter on his way to the G7 Leaders Summit. Bill, is it convenient for the Prime Minister to be in Canada at this meeting on the same day the Casey review into rape gangs is published, probably tomorrow? He's not in the country.
Oh, come on, Ben, that's conspiracy theories.
I'm not saying it's deliberate, I'm saying is it convenient?
No, it's most certainly not deliberate. You know, the G7 summits are agreed years in advance.
But it is convenient, isn't it?
No, but we need our Prime Minister to be at the G7 summit. You know, petrol prices in this country are going to be going through the roof as a result of what's happening between Israel and Iran. One of the most significant things on the G7 agenda is going to be Israel-Iran. We need our Prime Minister to be there.
To be honest, this Casey review was meant to come out before the end of May. We were told it was going to be here in May, so it is late, so I wasn't expecting it to come out now. But what I do hope is that he doesn't try to use this G7 summit as a distraction so that he doesn't have to say anything. You know, he has Twitter, he has a phone, he can video on and say, you know, I'm sure he's got a team there so that if he needs to say something about the Casey review report that's coming out, he can. I hope he doesn't avoid it and try to distract and just talk about Iran and everything
My
else.
understanding is that the Casey review was due to come out in a couple of weeks. It has been pulled forward because the vast bulk of it have been leaked.
I think it was Wednesday, but I think tomorrow will be the day because they can't. I mean, it's been leaked anyway.
This is the modus operandi of Starmer, though, because it's easier to look like a statesman overseas than it is to solve issues at home. This is why he's so keen to get involved in Ukraine, because he wants to do the Churchill routine as opposed to going, you know what, maybe our tax system in the United Kingdom is stuffed and we need to solve it. Or you know what, maybe, you know, people are really struggling at home. It is easier to look prime ministerial when you're in a chopper like that as opposed to solving really difficult issues.
So you don't want the UK Prime Minister to be at the G7 summit?
I'm not saying he shouldn't be there. I'm saying expect more visits like this over the next few years because it is easier to do this than it is to solve the problems in the United Kingdom.
Patricia, on your say, has said Keir Starmer doesn't need to be at the G7. They could have done it from Zoom. Is that a good point?
Rubbish. I mean, look, I was a foreign minister for 4 years. What you can achieve on Zoom is nothing compared to what you do when you negotiate face-to-face with people.
Can't get those fancy dinners, Bill.
Need the sham. I think Keir Starmer... I'm not saying Keir Starmer shouldn't be there, but I will point out that Keir Starmer seems far more comfortable and far more interested in meeting with international bureaucrats where there's wine and champagne than, say, meeting with farmers and normal working people in this country.
About 80% of Keir Starmer's diary is taken up with domestic concerns.
Well,
but the international matters, as we are finding out at the moment.
So the Prime Minister's Chinook, or at least the Canadian Air Force Chinook helicopter he's inside, is just about to take off. Bill, you say that his diary is filled up with domestic matters, but there was a story doing the rounds the other week, I think it was the Times or the Telegraph, or probably all of them, saying that he was the most... How do they describe it? The biggest gallivanter of a Prime Minister abroad in decades, 50, 60 years, more foreign trips than ever before.
Look, you know, I'm the oldest person around this table, and I have heard criticisms of successive Prime Ministers of all parties for spending time abroad. Actually, given the challenges we face, you do need your Prime Minister.
Well, there he goes. Live pictures now of the Prime Minister. He's off. He's in the sky in the helicopter in Calgary, going to the G7 Leaders Summit, where the Sun reports tomorrow he will apparently be confronting and demanding, as it's described. I mean, I can't imagine he'll be doing that. Emmanuel Macron saying that France needs to step up in its participation of stopping the small boats. As I keep saying, like a broken record, why aren't they doing it already? £500 million just about over the course of 3 or 4 years that we're sending them. Your money, by the way, my money. Why aren't they doing it already? They seem to have more up their sleeve, but choose not to do it. Right, coming up, the latest royal news as police probe a sex assault at the Royal Children's Elite School. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless, and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Amy, how did you get into this beauty stuff?
It's a good story, actually. I moved here years ago. I married a lovely Scotsman, and I was acting for a while, and then I was producing. And while I was producing, I needed a part-time job, and I got a job presenting beauty products at QVC, the shopping channel. And I was given a hair removal device. And although we did millions of pounds of sellout shows, they were oftentimes returned. Not due to my bad selling, but simply because they didn't work or people didn't like the smell of burning hair. And I thought to myself, people want a dermaplaner. They don't want this 250-pound device. So at the time, I was bringing over these dermaplaners from America to the UK because I couldn't find them in store. And then I thought to myself, light bulb moment, let me start manufacturing them because I truly believe everyone needs a dermaplaner in their routine.
A dermaplaner, that's the future.
Dermaplaner.
But you're from America, the US.
Yes, I'm from New York originally.
And, don't like to bring this up, Amy, but somebody tells me, I think it's James, our producer, that you were a career criminal back in the day. Is this true? Let's just put this to bed.
Okay, it's semi-true. Career criminal.
Semi-true.
Semi-true. I did get issued a summons.
Okay.
I was a bartender briefly. And I had to do community service for a day. I was issued a summons because there was a sting operation at a bar that I was working in as a bartender. And I served someone underage. The legal drinking age is 21.
21, yeah.
And it was super busy. I didn't look for his license. Next thing I know, I saw a cop flashing his badge. And I thought, oh my God, don't you have criminals to arrest, not me?
Proper criminals. But
criminals.
We believe in second chances here on GB News, especially on this show. And this is why we've got you behind the bar, even though you've got a dodgy past. You put that to bed, haven't you?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News, of course. Let's get the latest royal news now with Editor-at-Large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, who's live in the studio. Good evening, Charlotte. Lots going on. There's a situation at the school of Charlotte, Louis and George. What's going on?
Yeah, this was a brilliant investigation by my colleague Mark Cookham at the Mail on Sunday. So he's found out that Lambrook School, which is the school that all three Wales children attend, it's £30,000 a year.
Is that the one in Windsor?
The one in Windsor, yeah. There's been a sort of sex attack, really, on a school trip. And it's come to light. There's been a huge hoo-ha at the school because the parents are obviously incredibly upset, but they also feel the headmaster hasn't dealt with it properly. They might sue the school. They are saying that they want the headmaster suspended. I mean, let alone the pupil, they want the headmaster suspended. And you know what it's like with schools? I mean, small things are a huge drama, but this is a really scandalous thing to happen to the royal school. It seems that Catherine and William weren't aware of it, but they certainly will be now. And they've released all these lovely Father's Day photos of their happy family. But actually, it's really grim, sort of sad news for what's going on at their school.
So, yes, I read this in the Mail on Sunday today. So it involves two children at the school who allegedly got involved with another pupil on a school trip. I mean, it's very mucky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very mucky. And actually, it didn't come to light straight away. So eventually, another pupil, unconnected, told their parents. It all came to light. And then the parents of the abused pupil asked their child, and the child sort of broke down. And sort of it all came spilling out. And it was incredibly distressing for the parents. But also, I happen to know that... And I think it's kind of become clear now because Kate's involved in early years foundation work, but they really, really put a lot of time and effort into choosing the school for their kids. They are incredibly thorough. They're still going through a big search for George's school because he's going to big school soon. And, you know, it really, really matters to them that they send their kids to the right school, so they'll be devastated.
Charlotte, are there particular protocols and policies that these schools have to put in place as a result of having royal kids there?
There certainly are security things that they have to address, and one thing's for sure, it's easier if they all go to the same school because it's so expensive to secure different schools. And, you know, George is considering Marlborough, for example. Well, the campus is sort of in a town, so it's quite difficult to secure, basically.
Talking about George, he looks great at Trooping the Colour yesterday.
Yeah,
He's got a new haircut, hasn't he?
He's so great. He's got your haircut now.
Well, so many people have said that. Maybe Catherine and William watched GB News and got inspired. I doubt it. But a few people have said that. But on more pressing matters, do we know what George... I know he's a young kid and you don't want to put pressure on him, but do we know what he may do in the future? Will he likely go into the military like his dad, or any ideas what he's sort of teeing himself up to do?
Well, apparently he really likes acting. I've heard he's very good at acting. He's very interested. And don't forget, Charles was a real thesp and very much got involved at Cambridge in the sort of theatrics. But he has also shown in public an interest in aeroplanes and army-related things. But I have a feeling he's going to be a bit less action man and a bit more sort of broody thesp.
That'd be great.
Come on, he's 10. Give him time.
But when he was looking around one of his schools, apparently, and you know what parents are like on the school gates gossiping, but apparently he showed a real flair for the dramatic arts and even Shakespeare.
Oh, wow, good lad. OK, let's talk about Harry and Meghan. So they have got rid of how many more staff members and why?
Well, this sort of links to that story I was talking about on this show a couple of weeks ago that I had in Mail on Sunday, which is that they're restructuring their staff to become a sort of royal household. And, of course, now what's happened is, as part of the restructure, a few heads had to roll. And one of them is Charlie Gibson, who is their sort of head of UK PR.
Right.
And has overseen, I suppose, some blunders. I would have thought we'd put them...
If he'd looked at UK PR, he's not done a great job for
Well, he's been there for a year, and he was such a surprise appointment anyway, because he used to do the PR for Pedigree Charm and Mars bars. It was just a strange appointment anyway. So anyway, he's gone, and their man in America, Kyle's gone. And they've now got a friend of Harry's who actually went to Sandhurst Military Academy, so very much of that ilk, running their UK PR.
Why can't they keep hold of anyone? What's the issue?
I think in this example, it's not people walking, which has happened many times. It's them sort of cutting the wheat from the chaff. And what they want to do is create this really firm structure so that when people come and go, we don't all go crazy saying yet another person's walked or yet another person's been fired. They just say, look, this is the structure. Of course, inevitably, as in all jobs, some people come and go.
How many people would be...
You can tell I'm smiling, because he's semi-convinced by their take on events.
How many people would be in that sort of target structure?
Well, there's about sort of 10 now, but what they've said in their statement today, they've issued this really lofty statement from Meredith, who's their new boss, saying, oh, we're now going to have 8 members of staff globally responding to press inquiries and stories, you know, on all different time zones all across the world. And I've got to say, I mean, for somebody who wants to be private, I do think Harry's got an awful lot of people now.
Yeah, right.
Globally responding in time zones all over the world to press inquiries.
OK, Charlotte, thank you for that. I think the biggest takeaway from tonight is that an exclusive that Prince George loves acting? Bit of a thespian?
I think I did report it in the Mail on Sunday.
Oh, did you? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, we'll nick it as well. A joint venture. Joking. Right, more front pages have just dropped. Let's take a quick look. Charlotte, you stick with us because you're going to go through some of the stories as they come in. The I newspaper tomorrow, the headline reads, RAF on standby to defend Israel as the conflict with Iran escalates. We've been hearing from Mark White during the show. More than 10 people dead in Israel off the back of this conflict, including 5 Ukrainian refugees. The Daily Telegraph tomorrow. Trump vetoed plan to kill Iranian leader. So the White House refuses, or had refused, to approve an attack on the Iranian premier in order to avoid a wider conflict. The Daily Express. Say sorry for delay in sex gangs probe. Oh, well, this is just like my top of the show tonight, wasn't it? So Keir Starmer's been told to apologise for repeatedly snubbing demands for a national inquiry into grooming gangs. I also mentioned, if you missed the top of the show, the likes of Emily Maitlis, who called Rupert Lowe a racist for suggesting that Pakistani groups were directly linked to this. The likes of Rachel Reeves this morning, who also refused to apologise on behalf of the government. The likes of Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, who also refused to apologise. And indeed the likes of the legacy media, Jeremy Paxman, who tore Tommy Robinson apart in 2011, 2013 for daring to suggest the same thing. The Daily Mail front page. Keir Starmer in full retreat over grooming gangs after inquiry U-turn. Now he orders probe by Britain's FBI. So this is going to be a probe by the National Crime Agency. And a bit on Lucy Letby at the top, the drumbeat of doubts over Lucy Letby. I mean, Charlotte, can I ask you quickly, as a male representative, I've guessed, the Mail has a bee in their bonnet about this Lucy Letby story, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, there is doubt over it, and it's something that we've reported on consistently for the whole duration. And, you know, there's always been a portrayal of both sides. It was front page of the Mail on Sunday today as well.
Yes. What did you think of that front page? It was the person who led the prosecution, or whose witness was pivotal in the prosecution, said that people who support Lucy Letby had some sort of sexual affiliation with young blondes.
I know, it was such an extraordinary thing to say, and so incredibly, I don't know, one-dimensional and sexist, frankly.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary. The whole case, I mean, it's got this. There's a podcast, The Mail, associated with it, which does huge numbers. People are just fascinated by this case.
Really?
And glued to it. And then things like this happen, like, you know, today's front page, and you just think it gets more bizarre by the moment.
Yeah. All right, The Times, Trump says full might of US ready for conflict. So President Donald Trump said the US could become involved in the war between Israel and Iran after warning the full strength and might of his country's military would be ready to retaliate. And, of course, yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer refused to rule out the UK could get involved as well. Right, we move swiftly on before getting stuck into more papers. It's our Great British Giveaway, the biggest cash prize to date, £54,321 up for grabs. It's equivalent to having £1,000 in your bank account each week for a year. What would you do with all that money? Here's all the details you need to win.
The Great British Giveaway is now even greater, with your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. A totally tax-free £54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you can spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Imagine what you could do with that. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Very good luck to you if you enter that. Coming up, big story breaking overnight. A bullying investigation has rocked the BBC's flagship morning show. It follows claims the atmosphere on BBC Breakfast has become toxic, with hosts Naga Manchetti and Charlie Stewart falling out spectacularly. And there's also various other allegations about bosses and so on. It would never happen here, of course, on GB News. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. As we transition into a new week, there will often be quite settled conditions around for many of us, and even out there at the moment it is relatively calm. Plenty of clear spells and dry conditions for the vast majority. A few mist and fog patches. The same can't be said for Western Scotland, though, where rain will be arriving during the second half of the night. This could turn heavy over the hills for a time. Temperatures, though, will be holding up in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Monday morning. We do, though, have that rain in play for the far north and west of Scotland first thing on Monday. The heaviest pulses will be in the early hours, and it will tend to ease as we head throughout the day, but still fairly damp and grey to come here, and quite a brisk breeze around the coasts and hills as well. Some of that rain could just flirt with the far west of Northern Ireland, but parts of County Down probably seeing a decent amount of sunny spells, and the bulk of England and Wales will also see some sunshine pretty much from the word go on Monday morning, and that will continue throughout the day. There'll be some fair weather cloud bubbling up in places that might make the sunshine hazy at times, particularly for southern areas of England, but it will stay dry, fine and pleasant. Temperatures will also be up tomorrow compared to the values we've seen around today, so more widely across central eastern areas seeing the mid-20s of degrees Celsius. Even 20 degrees, 22 for parts of Northern Ireland, central and eastern Scotland, more around mid-teens for the far northwest. And that's because we see another weather front pushing its way in as we move overnight into the start of Tuesday. This could bring some stronger winds first thing in the morning, potentially close to gale strength around the far north of Scotland. And there'll also be this band slowly slipping its way southeastwards. That rain will tend to weaken throughout the day, and there'll be some sunny spells developing behind that, but the most prolonged sunshine right throughout Tuesday will again be down towards the southeast. But the sunshine looks like it will develop more widely across all areas of the UK as we head towards the middle of the week, and those temperatures are also going to be climbing. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo's Tonight, only on GB News. Some more front pages have just dropped, and there are some very exciting stories, if I say so myself, on the front. Let's start with the Sun newspaper. Exclusive, show in crisis. No, not Ben Leo Tonight, BBC Breakfast. Bullying probe at the BBC's flagship morning show. A bullying investigation has rocked the newsroom, apparently, following claims that the atmosphere on BBC Breakfast has become toxic, with hosts Naga Munchetti and Charlie Stayett falling out spectacularly. We'll talk about this in just a second. Let's look at the Guardian front page, though, tomorrow. Israel and Iran broaden the war as G7 leaders seek a ceasefire. And the Daily Mirror tomorrow. Again, the situation in the Middle East, world crisis. Both sides vow revenge after a day of terrifying missile attacks. G7 leaders desperate to avert a full-scale war. And we heard from Mark White earlier during the show, among the 10 or so people who have been killed in Israel from Iranian missile strikes, 5 were Ukrainian refugees. OK, let's take a look, I think, at the Sun front page. Good story, very juicy, like a bit of showbiz, especially in telly. Bullying probe at the BBC newsroom, the flagship story, of course, for the BBC. And it follows claims of a toxic atmosphere on BBC Breakfast, with hosts Naga Munchetti and Charlie Stayett falling out. The boss, apparently, a chap called Richard Frediani, has been accused of tyrannical behaviour, and a source has told The Sun tomorrow. To the viewer, BBC Breakfast is a warm, gentle programme, one that's flourishing in the ratings. But beyond the cosy red sofa, it's a very different picture. It's the latest crisis, of course, to hit the BBC following a rather torrid 12 months, which saw disgraced newsreader Hugh Edwards arrested and convicted, of course. Strictly Come Dancing pros and dancers coming under investigation for questionable behaviour, and Match of the Day star Jermaine Genus axed for inappropriate behaviour. And just a month ago, Frediani, who is the BBC Breakfast boss, known as Freddie, he was pictured proudly clutching the news programme's BAFTA award for its coverage of the Post Office scandal. But away from the cameras panel, the source speaking to The Sun said all was not well. They said several people, including crew, production and even presenters, have been very unhappy. Tension between Charlie and Naga is rife, and Freddie, the boss, is very old school and has some slightly tyrannical tendencies. He's very cerebral, but also quite aggressive in his methods. Some people think a recent promotion's gone to his head. Meanwhile, Naga, who is passionate about speaking up if she believes something's wrong, she's spoken to people who are unhappy. 4 more complaints have been lodged, so the Beeb has to be seen to wax. Well, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I will. Riddle me this, Ben. Why is it that these left-wing media organisations, the ones who always preach kindness and tolerance and diversity and warm and fluffy feelings, always seem to be the ones which have the awful, nasty, toxic cultures?
Because they shout, be kind, and then punch them in the face.
Exactly right. Ellen DeGeneres, that was another cracking one, you know. It seems to be a trend. Yeah. These ones that are on the left always are the ones where if you go behind the scenes, they are the most awful, nasty, abusive cultures.
Well, it's you get sort of male feminists who do the same thing. I think it's a psychological thing where those who shout the loudest about something, and male feminists just come to my head straight away. Yep. In my experience, the men who go around professing to be feminists and protectors of women,
biggest creeps.
They are the biggest creeps, and in actual fact, most of the time they've been accused of doing something. You know, Bill, what's your take on this?
Well, the thing I find quite striking is that the boss has been described as being slightly tyrannical.
Slightly, all right.
I think you're either tyrannical or you're not quite tyrannical. I'm not sure, you know...
It's like being pregnant, you're one or the other.
We don't know all the details here of exactly what's gone on, who supposedly bullied who and how, but I think we can clearly see this is pretty embarrassing for the BBC and just absolute chaos for them. They maybe thought it was over now, you know, Hugh Edwards, that's sort of done and dusted. Obviously, we're still talking about it, but at least there he's gone, he's out the picture. We've had Gary, of course, go, and now this.
Saint Gary.
It just doesn't end, and it's very embarrassing.
Well, I will say this, that I don't often watch BBC Breakfast, but when I do, the body language between Naga and Charlie looks strained.
Yeah, they do look cold. And actually, speaking of BBC Breakfast, the one thing that comes to my mind imminently is the situation with Kemi Badenoch a few weeks ago or months ago when she went for the interview about something or another, and Naga Munchetty was calling Adolescence. Do you remember Adolescence?
That's right.
The Netflix drama we should all be watching, and if we don't, we're stupid, horrible people. She called it a documentary. We've got a clip. Take a look.
Have you watched Adolescence yet?
No, I haven't. I probably won't. It's a film on Netflix, and most of my time right now is spent visiting the country.
Why would you not want to know what people are talking about?
Well, I think that those are all important issues, and those were issues that I've been talking about for a long time. But in the same way that I don't need to watch Casualty to know what's going on in the NHS, I don't need to watch a specific Netflix drama to understand what's going on. It's a fictional series.
Well, please tell me you've seen Adolescence, you bigot.
I absolutely made a point of not seeing Adolescence after the leftist media establishment told me to watch Adolescence. That was one of Kemi Badenoch's finest hours. I thought she did very, very well there.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary moment, wasn't it, Sean?
Yeah, I wish you had more of the clip because Naga just keeps going and going
and
going.
Naga said that it's a documentary.
It's excruciating
Kemi was saying,
to
you know,
watch.
this is a fictional series.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how all the lefty MPs were like, it's a documentary.
That's when I realised I think Naga's sort of out of control. She's lost her marbles.
Out of touch, yeah.
Right, before we head to the break, one more clip to show you. I've been teasing it a couple of times during the show. This is a guy who thinks he's cracked the recipe to world peace.
Everyone on planet Earth, stop killing. And if we do, that will benefit everyone. And it's really easy to understand that law. And it's obviously a natural positive law. Obviously, killing is is the most negative action we can do for any reason. You know what I mean? So everyone, for 1 year, let's stop killing everyone. No.
Why didn't we think of that?
I don't
Bill
know.
Remmel, just stop killing. Why didn't we think of that?
Who is he?
I don't know.
It's a bit like
He's
go on
gone
a
viral,
diet
though.
if you want to lose weight. It's like, yes, I do know that.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Yeah, he's not wrong. It's just so obvious, it's painful.
I think this is what you get when you've had a young generation who have, until Ukraine started, not really had any wars going on. They just think, oh, someone died, therefore the person who dropped that bomb, they must be an evil human being who just wanted to kill someone for the fun of it.
I love you getting stuck into the young generation, Chloe, you know.
OK, right, stick with us on Bentley tonight. More papers coming up in just a second. We'll be back in a few minutes.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
If it's heat you're after, then the Mediterranean is the place to be over this forthcoming week. We are going to be seeing temperatures climb over the next few days. Worth noting that heat could spark off a few showers and thunderstorms in places, but generally there will be plentiful amounts of sunshine for many of these countries if you are heading out. The peak of the heat likely to be on Wednesday at this point, with inland areas in particular seeing 35 to 40 degrees Celsius.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Back in 2015, Thornton and Cleveley's resident Emma Shepherd noticed the grass in her garden wasn't growing. Within months, she had to put down Alfie, one of her beloved dogs who had developed throat cancer. Just weeks later, she developed a lesion on her back, which would later be diagnosed as skin cancer. She knew then that something wasn't right.
I wasn't really aware of the history of the ICI site when I took the property. I did so much investigation. I had the ground tested with my own money. There was high levels of metals in there and some obviously cancerous carcinogenics in there. They actually nicknamed me Erin Brockovich because I was so all over it.
Last year, a joint investigation was launched by the Environment Agency and the local council. That was following the discovery of PFOA, a man-made chemical that potentially causes cancer. Both parties told GB News they are now working together on this matter, whilst the company under investigation for the potential release of the substance had this to say. AGC Chemicals Europe sets the highest standards for itself and takes its commitments to the local community and to the environment extremely seriously. They added that they voluntarily phased out the use of PFOA in the UK by early 2012. Release of the substance was within the permits held by AGC Chemicals Europe at the time and also UK legislation in place at the time. And yet, 2 months ago, residents within a kilometre of the site received this letter from the council, advising them not to consume anything grown in their gardens due to potential PFOA contamination.
GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo's Tonight. Now, I know the news cycle can sometimes be a little bit depressing, sometimes fearful, so tonight we're going to go through some good news. Each of the panel have a positive news story to quickly share. Bill, should we start with you? What's your good news story?
Arnold Schwarzenegger was interviewed in the Sunday Times magazine today, and I'm not a natural... I wouldn't naturally gravitate towards him. You know, his kind of films don't appeal to me. He's a Republican in America. But over the years, I've warned to him, and if you read this interview... I mean, Decca Aitkenhead, the journalist, said he's the happiest person she's ever interviewed. He's got no problem with selfies. The first thing he ever said to his mother-in-law to be was, "Your daughter has a nice arse," and he got away with it. He's incredibly positive. He never gets angry but cries easily. I think that's a good quality. It's just a really positive piece, and he comes across as a really good guy.
And what Bill hasn't mentioned is that he's been going more and more left-wing since he was the Republican governor of California, and he's now one of those net zero loonies.
Well, you
so,
say
Bill,
that.
that's why you must love him.
No, he says a very prescient thing at the end of the interview. He is a pro-environmentalist, but he said environmentalists, their heart's in the right place, and I'm very fond of their work, but their communication skills really suck.
All right.
And I think that's true.
Nice, like that. Chloe, what's your good news story?
So there is a cancer survivor who has not only been super lucky to get rid of his cancer, but he has won the lottery 3 times in 12 months. And I'm not talking 20 quid. He won $500,000 one time, and then I think $1 million the other 2 times. He also, about 10 years ago, won a big jackpot as well. So this guy is a very lucky man.
Surely it's rigged. 3 times lotto.
Yeah, in 12 months, 3 big wins.
Yeah. Don't know, I'd have some questions about that. Charlotte, what's yours?
My good news is Liam Gallagher sticking up for middle-aged men. I'm looking not at you, but at you over here.
as in I'm middle-aged and Ben's not?
Because you're so young. But, OK, so...
Wait a second, Ben's older than me.
It's older than Will.
Will, how old are you?
No.
I'm 34.
Yeah, you look about 50.
Oh, geez, I need to work on my skincare routine.
Okay,
Jesus.
I'm middle-aged, all right? I'll take a hit. So basically, Oasis is going to have concerts in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh Council said, watch out, because a load of oldies are coming. You need to make more room for them because they're middle-aged, so they'll be a bit wider. They're likely to be have medium to high levels of intoxication, and generally just sort of slagged off Oasis fans for being middle-aged.
So who was that, Edinburgh Council?
Yeah, but Liam Gallagher stuck up for us all.
Good lad.
We middle-aged people, and said that
Yeah, speak for yourself.
Thing stinks. And sorry I called you middle-aged.
Right, yeah, that's a good one. Well done, Oasis. Well done, Liam Gallagher. Looking forward to them getting back together. My one is not a particular story. Will, have I done you?
No, but I'm still just I'm reflecting on my life choices at the moment, to be honest.
Go on then, you got 30 seconds.
The scientists have pinpointed the happiest places you can be in the UK, and it is not in the cities, it's not in the regions, it's in the suburbs. So the Daily Mail has said that basically happiness is correlated with being close to a city, but not too close. And that is where the lowest rates of depression are, whereas the rates are higher in the cities, followed by the regions, and then lowest in the suburbs.
What you're saying
Suburbia.
is get out of London.
Get out of London is basically the bottom line.
My one, thank you for that, Will. My one isn't a particular story. It's just Father's Day today. Happy Father's Day to all you grafting dads, and actually, in fact, the ones who don't see their kids for whatever reason because there's been rows or arguments or whatever else, and I'm sure you'd love to. So, yeah, props to you and well done to all the fathers out there. Thank you to my panel, Will, Chloe, Charlotte, Bill. We've got one more hour. Ben Leo tonight, late edition. Some of the panel are staying with us. Chloe, you're going, aren't you?
I'm going.
Thank you for your company. Happy birthday. Back in a tick for Ben Leo tonight, late edition.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. As we transition into a new week, there will often be quite settled conditions around for many of us, and even out there at the moment it is relatively calm. Plenty of clear spells and dry conditions for the vast majority. A few mist and fog patches. The same can't be said for Western Scotland, though, where rain will be arriving during the second half of the night. This could turn heavy over the hills for a time. Temperatures, though, will be holding up in double-digit figures for many of us as we start off Monday morning. We do, though, have that rain in play for the far north and west of Scotland first thing on Monday. The heaviest pulses will be in the early hours, and it will tend to ease as we head throughout the day, but still fairly damp and grey to come here, and quite a brisk breeze around the coasts and hills as well. Some of that rain could just flirt with the far west of Northern Ireland, but parts of County Down probably seeing a decent amount of sunny spells, and the bulk of England and Wales will also see some sunshine pretty much from the word go on Monday morning, and that will continue throughout the day. There'll be some fair weather cloud bubbling up in places that might make the sunshine hazy at times, particularly for southern areas of England, but it will stay dry, fine and pleasant. Temperatures will also be up tomorrow compared to the values we've seen around today, so more widely across central eastern areas seeing the mid-20s of degrees Celsius. Even 20 degrees, 22 for parts of Northern Ireland, central and eastern Scotland, more around mid-teens for the far northwest. And that's because we see another weather front pushing its way in as we move overnight into the start of Tuesday. This could bring some stronger winds first thing in the morning, potentially close to gale strength around the far north of Scotland. And there'll also be this band slowly slipping its way south-eastwards. That rain will tend to weaken throughout the day, and there'll be some sunny spells developing behind that, but the most prolonged sunshine right throughout Tuesday will again be down towards the southeast. But the sunshine looks like it will develop more widely across all areas of the UK as we head towards the middle of the week, and those temperatures are also going to be climbing. Bye-bye.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30am.
Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9pm you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 11pm, I'm Ben Leo and this is Ben Leo Tonight, late edition. And breaking tonight, the Prime Minister has landed in Calgary, Canada, ahead of crunch talks with G7 world leaders. He's talking tough, Sir Keir Starmer, saying he'll demand the French do more to tackle the small boats crisis. We've heard it all before though, haven't we? Our political editor, Christopher Hope, is out there live on the ground with the Prime Minister. We'll be going live to Chopper very shortly. Also tonight... The Middle East continues. Iran has launched fresh missile strikes on Israel. Meanwhile, 5 Ukrainians, we understand to be refugees, have died in Israel off the back of Iran's missiles. Iranian news agencies are reporting that 224 people have been killed in the country since Israel began attacking Iran. And I'm just hearing in the last few minutes a new fresh wave of missiles are heading Israel's way. A massive missile launch as well from Yemen. We'll bring you the latest updates very shortly. And bombshell news at the BBC. They've been rocked by another scandal, a bullying investigation among its flagship morning show, following claims the atmosphere on BBC Breakfast has become toxic, with hosts Naga Munchetti and Charlie Stewart falling out spectacularly. In the Daily Mail tomorrow, doubts over the Lucy Letby conviction. Also, they continue with that theme.